Salutations, dear audience. Prepare to be inspired and empowered as we delve into the realm of business triumph and elevate your business. I'm Ed Jarecki, your host for today's enlightening episode. Thank you for being a part of this enriching experience. Our show is dedicated to enlightening and equipping business owners, professionals, and aspiring entrepreneurs like you with essential knowledge and insights from experts who have achieved success in their life and business. Today's guest exemplifies this mission. So make yourself comfortable, grab some coffee, and let's extend a hearty greeting to our incredible guest today, Deborah Dubree. Deborah's journey from the locker room to the boardroom is nothing short of inspiring. Deborah is a powerhouse with a no BS approach that has revolutionized the way high performers, including entrepreneurs, leaders, sales and customer service professionals, as well as college and professional athletes approach success. The client roster that boasts NFL players, Deborah's training methods are designed to unlock the dynamic of power of emotions, ensuring unbeatable success across various fields. As Deborah joins us on the show, she'll shed light on what success means to her personally and how her definition has evolved over time, as well as one or two of her top challenges and the associated lessons learned. And finally, for today, we'll explore how Deborah has leveraged innovation in her business and other work to overcome challenges and achieve her goals. So join me in welcoming Deborah Dubree as we embark on another incredible episode of Elevate Your Business. And without further ado, welcome to the show, Deborah. It's great to see you again. How are you doing today?
Yeah, thank you, Ed. I love being here, and I appreciate you extending the offer to join you.
Oh, it's been my honor, my pleasure. I got to know you a little bit in our first conversation. What you've accomplished is absolutely incredible. Could you start by sharing a little bit more about yourself and your business?
Well, I'll try to make it a short story. But I was born and raised in a small town outside of Chicago, and the first 10 years of my career, like in 18 months, I went from graduating high school, graduating cosmetology school, got my state boards in Chicago to become a beautician, got my first W-2 job, got married, had my first child, and that all completed a month before I turned 19. So I thought I was just so incredibly smart right until I went into labor. And then it was, I need some help here. Moved out to Arizona in 79 and raising my two kids out here, became a single mom after 25 years of marriage, which was an awesome marriage. And then went from answering phones as a receptionist to owning and running a $20 million commercial construction company and did it on a high school diploma. Part of the reason I was able to do that is because I stopped counting at about 35, 36 years, but studies in quantum physics, neuroscience, brain research, NLP hypnosis, body language, conscious language, behavioral psychology, sports psychology, trauma resilience, and you can keep naming it because most of them I've either become certified in or been trained in. And now, like I say, when I sold my construction company, this is my 19th year in my business, Clear Edge, working with elite performers in business and sports and entertainment. So,
What an amazing career. So, through that time, coming to today, how do you define success today after that journey?
well, success today is very different than it was when I first started out because I look at success as, it's an accomplishment of a goal. And whether that goal is stated or not, whether it's conscious or subconscious, it's meeting some type of goal that we set for ourselves, preferably, as opposed to somebody else setting it. And small goals I set throughout my career, but I never would have guessed that I would have done the things that I've done, gone the places that I've gone, worked with the people I've worked with. And had I set one of those, what we used to say, the 6 month, 1 year, 3 year, 10 year, 15 year goals, I would have been on that path instead of being on the path of success that I went on. So to me, success is not so much about an accomplishment, though that in itself is important. It's really noticing and the enjoyment that I feel when I have reached a certain place and can sit there, stand there, reflect on and go, yeah, girl, you did it. You made that happen. And to me, that's success.
Outstanding. And you alluded to the fact that that definition has evolved over time. Where did it start out at?
Well, it really started out at doing the 90-day, 1 year, 3 year, and so on type of goals. And it worked. Again, it's important. I do believe in setting goals, but I'll give you an example. Once I sold my business And I had a marketing person at the time, and I told him, I said, you know what? I said, I want to work with NFL players. I've been working with entrepreneurs and business professionals. I love sports. I'm a Chicago girl, and you don't live in the state of Illinois unless you love sports or you get kicked out of the state. So I told him, I said, I want to work with athletes. And he said, okay, well, I'll go out to some of the schools, the high schools and that, and I'll see if I can find a coach that will let you come speak to the players. And I said, BS on that. I want to work with players in the NFL. You go find me people to talk to. So my goal was to work with players in the NFL currently playing. And what I looked at is the steps I needed to take to get there, which meant to me talking to former players, talking to agents, talking to trainers, talking to anybody, nutritionists, anybody that works with the players currently to say, what do I need to know that I don't know right now? And how can I break into meeting some players and at least having a conversation with them and with the hopes of then actually working with players? So to me, success was out into the future. And then I looked at those little incremental steps that included success at every level and celebrating each one of those minor successes, reaching the major goal of success.
Outstanding. I love that. And
Thank you.
so through that journey, there's always challenges, opportunities that present themselves as challenges. What are one or two of your top challenges and the lessons learned associated with them?
Well, I could give you pages of challenges, as I'm sure most people could. One of the things that happened in my life very, very early in my life is that when I was 12 years old, this is back in Chicago, my 16-year-old brother was killed in a car accident
I'm
5 days
sorry.
before Christmas. That, though I didn't call it a challenge, recognize it as a challenge, but it set up a subliminal belief system in me that I didn't really even address until I was in my late 20s. And that's when I started going through the process of learning the things that I've had now that I reeled off earlier, going through those studies because I needed to heal in me this feeling of not just loss, but why am I crying every time I hear his name? And why can't I smell Aquanet hairspray without going into tears? And it started my studying and brought me into a path of looking at high performance, not only in myself, but in others. And I still, every single day, every single week, I still deal with that challenge, yet I've learned how to deal with that challenge. When I became the CEO and owner of a construction company. Again, I had spent, I don't know, 10 years or so, I think, in the industry at that point. Had a new job as the CFO of this company who had never had a CFO before, and they were around 5 million at the time in revenue, and the goal was to get to 20 million. So it was a three-person team, myself, the current owner at that time, I was CFO of the company, and then the director of sales that became the upper leadership team and to be the only number one, almost the only woman in the entire company of over 300 people, and also in a high leadership position, and making sure that my voice, my thoughts, my opinions were not just heard, but were actually listened to, discussed, so that we could come up with the very best answer. So it was essential for me to learn and grow myself from the inside out in order to be able to be seen not as a fist down on the desk, pay attention to me, but earning the respect of others around me. So they were actually coming to me to help them work through problems.
You alluded to this, but what are one or two of those specific tactics that you use to break down those barriers and become a respected part of that team?
Well, one of the things whenever I was first hired into this company that I eventually became an owner of, and as CFO, I spent the first 3 months just studying the company, talking with the project managers, talking with the estimators, talking with sales, going out in the field, and all of those things, gaining my knowledge. I went to the owner and said, we need a new integrated system for not only accounting, but also for project manager. So I need $10,000 in order to go out and buy the software that I need. After I had it up and running, the guys were still doing handwork. So I went around, told them I'm going to break every number two pencil in the house if you guys don't start looking at these reports and let me show you how much faster I can get you the information. I ended up walking into every week we had a meeting at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Monday morning to plan for the week. So we had our top foremen were in, the estimators, top salespeople, the owner, and there was nobody from the financial side of the company in that meeting. So rather than ask for permission, I simply walked into the meeting earlier than anybody else, put my coffee and my reports and stuff down, went and talked to the guys as I always did in that morning. And then when the time came, I just walked in, took my seat. Nobody ever questioned why I was there. And when one of the guys was reporting on their project, both the project manager and the foreman were reporting on the project. And I said, well, that's not what I'm seeing. Let me show you what I see based on the reports. And showed everybody in the room the report for that particular project, showed them forecasting what was going to come if they didn't switch out how they were using their field personnel. And from that point on, they were hungry to learn what could they do better by understanding the reports and using them as a mechanism for running the projects.
Outstanding. So you led by example. You shared with them something that was meaningful and started
Right.
to build that respect, that credibility.
Yeah, I
Outstanding.
inserted myself someplace where I had not been invited and then made sure that I didn't just butt in. I wanted to make sure that I understood the meeting and how it was being run and the energy of the meeting before I spoke up, and then to make sure that I spoke up in a way that was respectful and not just, well, you guys are all wrong and I'm right. It says I'm seeing it a different way.
I love that approach. Outstanding. Any
Yeah.
other lessons learned that you'd like to share?
Oh, Lord.
There's a
Let me.
lot of businesses there.
Yeah. One of the things I wrote about in my second book is I think I called the plan It's All About Me. And what I wrote about is understanding kind of what I just talked about a little bit, but in a different scenario. I was talking about understanding when you're having a meeting, whether you're at the head of the table or you're somebody who's attending the meeting. I always looked at who do I want to be in that meeting? Because there's sometimes I wanted to be in the meeting and just be a listener. Other times I wanted to be in the meeting and I want to figure out who are the power players in the room because it wasn't always the person who was sitting at the head of the table or the person with, the biggest title on their business card. Back then we actually had business cards. So, and I would dress accordingly. In other words, if I was going into a meeting with a banker or an attorney or somebody like that, I would dress in a full-blown suit and I would pick my seat typically at the head of the table because it was in our office and they were there to support the company that I worked for and eventually owned. If I was meeting with, say, the guys in the field, I would still dress professional, but I would dress more similar to how they were dressed. In other words, I'd be a lot more comfortable. I didn't butch up. I didn't come in with boots on and a hard hat or anything like that. But I did dress in a way so they would feel comfortable with me and not look at me as the authority figure that might jump down their throat about something. So I'd always looked at that, reverse engineer, what is that I want to accomplish in the meeting? How do I need to dress? How do I need to think about myself? How do I need to think about others? And then make sure that I set myself up energetically before I walked in the meeting and chose my seat at the table, that I was prepared to be the person I chose to be in that meeting rather than waiting for what happened and then decide on the run.
I was responding to a question on LinkedIn today where they were asking for professional advice. And what you just reinforced there was really important because my response back to it was, and it was all around communication and credibility relative to consulting and coaching services. I was like, well, there's four different things that you've really got to look at. It's the words you're using, the tone you're using, the facial expressions you're using, and the body language. And when you think about your dress goes into that body language part. And reinforcing the fact that the words you're using are only 7% received as part of the overall message you're delivering when you put that whole package together. So when you were sharing that, it just kind of reinforced for me that Yes, it's all of those things, but be guided by your audience, by the setting, what your desired outcomes are. Is that a fair way to express that?
Yeah, it absolutely is. And most people don't realize that our language is part of our body language. How we speak, as you mentioned, the tone, the tempo, all of that is part of our body language. So if I walk into a meet, well, let's say that I'm in the middle of a meeting or just speaking one-on-one with someone, and they're starting to get all upset and angry or worried about something maybe that's going on, and they're just up here hyper, and I might go, okay, time out, and give the signal for timeout, and then I'll go, we're on the same team, so now I'm using the hand signals to let them know we're together on this. So I'm talking to their body more than I'm talking to them. I'm talking to the subliminal aspect of them, and I'm going to make sure that my tone and tempo is more even toned. I'm going to talk slower so that I hopefully can help their energy come to an energy closer to mine rather than me raising up closer to theirs. Now, if I'm in a room and I want to make myself known and it requires an energy greater than the way I might typically talk in a meeting, I might say, all right, well, here's the thing. This is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it. And what do you think? Because I think if we can all come together and bring this information in together, we can come up with the best idea possible. Let's collaborate on this. So I've just raised my energy. I could have said those exact same words of, all right, well, let's just come together and we'll collaborate on this, and we'll get all of our ideas on the table, and it's a totally different tone. Everybody responds to it differently than if I bring the energy up because I want their energy to be up, to be thinking faster so that we can come up with some of the best ideas rather than thinking too long about things. Let's throw some things out on the table and we'll figure out from there what we're going to do with all of those ideas.
What a great lessons learned. Thank you for sharing that. Well,
Absolutely.
relative to innovation in your business, and I consider innovation as people, process, technology wrapped in a cocoon, a culture that enables win-win-win outcomes, win for the client, win for the business, win for the people that are part of that. When
Right.
I describe that, how has innovation in your business helped you drive and get to the success you've achieved so far?
Well, culture in my business is easy because it's me and my dog. And so I set the tones most of the time. Every once in a while, he'll come interrupt me and go, you know what, it's time to go play. And I'll go, you're right. I really need to take a break and go play for a little bit. Let's go play. And then I can come back and think straight again. When I look at technology, I was using Zoom long before Zoom became popular with the pandemic and that, because it allows me to work international. I've had contracts with global corporations that I was working with 41 of their leaders from the CEO and their top leadership for a year all over the globe and doing it all through Zoom. So that has definitely been a big technology innovation that I've used and always look to how can we use it best, even doing what we're doing right now, using technology to reach out to more people and to have conversations like this or to hold meetings. Also, ChatGPT, I've been using it for quite a while now, and I really enjoy using it for certain purposes. Sometimes I argue with it and tell it that's not it's not my tone. You know better than this. And then I'll put something in, maybe a chapter from my book or something, and say, this is how, this is my tone, this is how I talk. But it's certainly very beneficial in just working through some things and oftentimes coming up with some ideas that I didn't have. I'd never use it as is. I'm always picking out words and phrases and things that to me fit me and are most important, and then massage it from there. But it certainly is a beneficial tool.
Yep, I love it. Absolutely. And I use it similarly. It helps fill in the gaps, but I love your response to you argue with it once in a while to make sure
Yeah,
that the
no, I
tone and
do.
stuff is.
It's interesting. I'll feed it information, usually the first pass through. Maybe I'll feed it information about my client, my ideal client. Here's who they are, their age range, everything, the demographics, everything you typically put in an avatar. I'll put all that in and say information only. And then I might go back and say, here's the issue I'm trying to solve. And I'll tell ChatGPT who I want it to be. If I want it to be the expert in copywriting or the expert as a presenter or whatever. And I might even give it the actual name of somebody or a group of people that I know to have the same values and philosophies that I have, and let ChatGPT go from there and
Yeah.
start giving me ideas.
That makes a lot of sense. I've actually, just to add on to that a bit, I actually have used it also. I'll say, I want a warm professional message. I want an inspiring message. So I'll give it some adjectives to basically play on so that when it provides me the draft responses, that it's closer to my voice in there. And if I can't articulate it, I start from scratch. It's still me. All they're doing is helping me get to my endpoint faster than I could do it if I wrote those things out completely on my own.
Absolutely. Yeah, I look at it, it's a tool. It's nothing more than a tool. It's just very intuitive tool when we give it the right prompts. Without giving it the right prompts, it's just like any person that we might work with, garbage in, garbage out. If we're not communicating with somebody in a way that they can understand from their point of view what we're trying to communicate, because I've done a good job of communicating to them. It's that same thing with ChatGPT. We got to let it know what we want in a language that it understands. And there's times I've even say, search the internet and find, whatever, something. And it will come back with some, great thoughts and ideas that I can play with.
I'm going to vary my next question just a little bit because we share a role in this coaching of other people world. And they've talked a lot about technology and innovation. And there's two kind of bipolar schools of thought. One is that all of this advances in technology, AI capability and competency, et cetera, is ultimately going to eliminate the need for coaches. And on the other side of that same coin is another group that's saying, it's just going to enhance the ability for coaches to really help business owners, executives, professionals, et cetera, accelerate their career even more. What's your
Sure.
response to that?
I think there is a level of coaching that could be done through AI and things that they're actively creating right now. I think when you get to the higher end coaching, the type of coaching that you and I do, no machine can really be taught the things that we know in the way that we know it, and be able to read as much as we can read into a person's, that you mentioned earlier, their language, their body language, their repeating of certain phrases, knowing how to ask a question that's deeper and then goes deeper again and then goes deeper again, and then knowing what to do with those answers, to feel the energy. When I feel the energy in my own body sometimes before my client feels it. So it gives me an opportunity to go, ooh, okay, I thought this was going on with them, but because of what I'm feeling, I'm going to ask them a different question. And I don't believe that AI can do that, and certainly be as empathetic as a human being can be. It's just like you could have a machine, a robot, or whatever, touch you and hug you. Okay, it's not the same as a human being. It's not the same of heart to heart. And when I look at coaching, it's a heart to heart, gut to gut, mind to mind, that we're reading all of it at one time. Those of us that are good at what we do, as opposed to someone who's just learned from a book and they say they're a coach and now they're out there coaching. Coaching to me is one of the tools that I use. It's not who I am. I'm an elite performance expert, and I use many, many tools that I've learned over the years. One happens to be coaching. So I don't think coaching will ever be replaced by machines. I think it can be augmented by machines for certain levels.
I share that school of thought. And just to kind of summarize what you just shared, it really comes down to the relationship, the empathy, the care, that trust that we build with it. And you really can't do that. I don't care how advanced that machine is. It may emulate some of those characteristics, but by the end of the day, it's still a machine. So what we bring to the table is not only the lifelong expertise, what we've developed, but it's also that caring, that compassion, that true understanding, which helps us help them solve whatever they're trying to solve, get to whatever level they're trying to get to. Is that a fair way to,
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. No, I totally agree.
as a final takeaway, what would you tell our audience out there that in your journey, here's something that you really must consider for your success?
One of the biggest things, and thank you for the question, because one of the biggest things that I look at is unless and until you as the coach, the leader, whatever position you might be in, unless and until you understand your own, what I call self-identity. Who are you at the very soul of you, to understand how mental, emotional, and physiologically we work as human beings, and to understand yourself, then growth is never really going to happen to the level of your desires and your wishes. We need to be able to self-manage our emotions, but we have to understand them first. When I have leadership programs, leader in leadership is all capitals, because you can't lead anybody else until you understand how to lead yourself. And self-identity, when I work once with someone on their self-identity statement, mine is broiled down now. It used to be longer. In fact, in my book, it was I'm tenacious, I'm gutsy, I'm street smart. I ask a lot of smart questions and I expect answers. I'll do whatever it takes within my value system to move ahead and to get ahead in my dreams and my aspirations. Now I simply have boiled it down to I just simply get my Chicago on. Because when I say those words, I get my Chicago on. It's like, all right, the shoulders go back, the heads go up. I just straighten up a little bit. And it's like, all right, I'm here. I can take on anything, anyone that comes my direction and still do it boldly, but with love and kindness as well. And
Yeah.
that's why my clients call me their secret weapon, because in fact, one of my NFL players, this is years ago, said, "You're like a really good friend that actually knows stuff." So I thought, oh, that's very cool. I like that.
Well,
Yeah. And then another one, because I was asking for testimonials and I couldn't use their name or anything. I could use their team and position, because you really couldn't guess unless you knew what year and how deep they were in the roster. But one of the other guys just said, "This shit is legit." And I was like, that's what he would say to one of the other guys in the locker room if they ask, should I work with her or not? So, yeah, to understand ourselves is one of the biggest goals that we can have for ourselves. And it's the thing that will take even a really, really successful person that's sitting in the tallest office in the biggest office within the tallest building, in the biggest office within the building, wearing a $10,000 suit with a Benz sitting outside. There's always another level. That's why I wrote The Averages and Addiction from Mediocre to Millions, because no matter where we are, we can be average among our peers,
right.
or we could be average, just comparison of ourselves to ourselves. And in that, by knowing ourselves, knowing what really makes us stronger, more powerful, more purposeful, we can then move to whatever our next level is. So, yeah, that self-identity, know thyself, is
Know
one of the
thyself.
biggest,
Absolutely.
biggest things people can do to help themselves in their success at home and in the office.
I 100% agree with you. Any
Mhm.
final thoughts?
Yay. Well, yes, my final thought is, as we look at the world today, and it's really scary if we watch the news and see so much hatred in the world that's going on. We can buy into that and be afraid and cower back and get in a fetal position, or we can scream and holler and say, "These stupid people," or we can say, "I'm going to go join them and I'm going to scream and holler and do whatever." Or we can say, my part, the biggest part that I can play in the universe today is, again, go into me and find peace and joy and happiness within me, because the energy that I create, and this is science, people, this is proven science, that the energy that we create individually becomes a part of the massive energy that goes out into the world. And enough of us doing that, and they've got places around the world that measure this, people doing it all at the same time, actually makes a difference. So whether it's a loved one who's hurt or injured, or the world view of things, heal it within yourself first. and you'll be of most benefit to anybody else around you.
I love that message. And it kind of goes back to what we talked about before. What's that definition of success? Well, there becomes a core part of that definition of success.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to thank you all for joining us today, and a special thank you to our incredible guest, Deborah Dubree, for sharing her insights, experiences, and success tactics with us. We hope this conversation has left you inspired and motivated to embrace the challenges of entrepreneurship with vigor, innovation, and adaptability. Remember, success comes in many forms, and it's essential to define it for yourself. Take the lessons shared by Deborah to heart as you navigate your own entrepreneurial journey. Embrace change, seek out opportunities for growth, and always be willing to adapt to the evolving landscape of business. Thank you once again to our phenomenal guest speaker, Deborah Dubree, and thank you all for tuning in. We look forward to seeing you next time as we continue exploring the stories behind incredible entrepreneurs. Stay resilient and stay innovative. Have a wonderful day, everybody.